My backyard pool was not just a luxury. It was a testament to 5 years of overtime shifts, careful budgeting, and countless weekends spent digging, leveling, and installing everything myself. The sparkling blue water reflected more than just the summer sky. It reflected my dedication and hard work. Every morning before heading to work, I would test the water chemistry, skim the surface for leaves, and adjust the filtration system. This was not just a pool. This was my haven. Living in Oakwood Estates meant being part of a tight-knit community. Most of us had been neighbors for years, watching children grow up and sharing holiday celebrations together. There was an unspoken code of respect among us. We helped when needed and respected boundaries always. I occasionally invited neighbors over for weekend barbecues where the children could swim while adults chatted by the grill. These gatherings were always planned, always respectful, and always ended with guests helping clean up before departing. Everything changed when the Robertsons moved into the blue house 3 doors down. They seemed normal enough at first: husband, wife, 2 children around 10 and 12. Karen Robertson introduced herself with a plate of store-bought cookies and excessive compliments about my front yard landscaping. Her smile was wide but never quite reached her eyes. Still, I chalked up my unease to simple unfamiliarity. The first time the Robertsons visited my pool was by proper invitation during the annual block party. Karen gushed about how beautiful everything was, repeatedly mentioning how her children loved swimming but their previous home had no pool. The boy and girl were well behaved that day, asking permission before using the diving board and cleaning up their towels afterward. Karen thanked me profusely, her voice carrying so the entire neighborhood could hear her gratitude. 2 days later, Karen texted asking if her children could use the pool that afternoon. I agreed, assuming she meant a supervised visit like before. To my surprise, she simply dropped the children off with a casual wave before driving away. When she returned 3 hours later, I politely explained that I was not comfortable having unsupervised children in my pool due to liability concerns. She nodded with understanding, but her tight smile suggested otherwise. The requests became more frequent: Monday afternoons for the children, Wednesday evenings for family swim time, weekend mornings because the community pool was too crowded. Each time, Karen acted as though my agreement was a foregone conclusion. When I occasionally said no due to prior commitments, her responses grew increasingly passive-aggressive. "Oh, I already promised the kids. They will be so disappointed." Or, "We were really counting on cooling off today." The subtle guilt trips multiplied, but I held firm to my boundaries. That fateful Saturday, I left early for a quick trip to visit my sister in the next town over. The visit ran longer than expected, and I returned home around 4 in the afternoon. As I pulled into my driveway, I noticed unfamiliar cars lining the street. The sound of splashing and music drifted from my backyard. My stomach dropped. Surely Karen would not have entered my property without permission. But as I walked through my side gate, the full scene unfolded before me. My backyard was overrun with strangers. Adults I had never met lounged on my patio furniture. Children splashed wildly in my carefully maintained pool. Food containers and drink cups littered every surface. And there in the middle of it all sat Karen in my favorite lounger, holding court like she owned the place, sunglasses perched on her head, laughing loudly with guests who had no right to be there. Our eyes met across the chaos of my invaded sanctuary, 20 strangers, my private space, my paradise interrupted by the most brazen act of entitlement I had ever witnessed. For several heartbeats, I stood frozen, unable to process the scene before me. My private sanctuary had transformed into a public water park without my knowledge or consent. Scattered potato chips crunched under my feet as I finally moved forward toward Karen. The music was so loud that several neighbors had not even noticed my arrival. A woman I had never seen before was mixing drinks at my outdoor bar. 2 teenage boys were playing chicken fight in the deep end, dangerously close to my underwater lights. As I approached Karen, her expression shifted from surprise to a practiced nonchalance. She waved casually as though this was all perfectly normal. "Oh, you are back early. Look who decided to join us for some weekend fun," she called out loudly enough for nearby guests to hear, attempting to normalize the situation. "Karen, what is this? Who are all these people in my backyard?" I asked, struggling to keep my voice level despite the rage building inside me. The bass from my own speakers nearly drowned out my words. Karen tilted her head, confusion playing across her features with theatrical precision. Just a few friends enjoying this beautiful day. I mentioned we might have a little get-together, remember? Her voice carried the confident tone of someone rewriting history in real time. No, Karen, you never mentioned anything, and I never gave permission for 20 strangers to use my pool. I looked around, recognizing not a single face besides hers and her 2 children. These are not even people from our neighborhood. Karen waved her hand dismissively. Oh, these are just friends from my book club and my husband's work. Everyone has been dying to see your gorgeous backyard after I showed them pictures. She leaned forward conspiratorially. Between us, I may have talked up your pool a bit too much on social media. My blood pressure spiked as a man in swim trunks emerged from my house, a fresh beer in hand. Did you give people access to my home too? I asked, incredulous. Just for the bathroom, Karen replied without a hint of remorse. And the kitchen for ice, no big deal. I turned to address the entire gathering, raising my voice above the music. Excuse me, everyone, I am sorry, but this gathering was not authorized. This is my private home, and I need everyone to pack up their belongings and leave immediately. An uncomfortable silence fell as someone finally turned down the music. Guests exchanged awkward glances, many clearly surprised to learn they were there without permission. Karen stood quickly, her casual demeanor vanishing. Do not be ridiculous, she hissed. Everyone is having such a good time. My children just got in the water. You cannot kick everyone out now. I absolutely can. This is my property, Karen. Everyone needs to leave. I stood firm, though my heart was pounding. Karen's face transformed, her mask of friendliness dropping entirely. How dare you embarrass me like this? Do you know how long my kids have been looking forward to this pool day? You are going to ruin everything because you cannot share for one afternoon. She gestured dramatically toward her children. Look at them, they are devastated. Her children, far from looking devastated, seemed merely confused by the adult conflict erupting poolside. Several guests were already gathering their belongings, mumbling apologies as they slipped past me toward the gate. Karen made one last effort, her voice rising. We will leave soon anyway. Just let everyone stay another hour. Do not be so selfish. Now, Karen, everyone leaves now. My voice left no room for negotiation. After 30 uncomfortable minutes of gathering belongings and awkward departures, my backyard finally emptied. Only then did I discover the full extent of the invasion. Wet towels had been thrown over my expensive patio furniture. Empty bottles floated in the pool. Someone had broken the cover to my outdoor electrical outlet. Chipped crumbs and spilled drinks stained the concrete. And somehow, a mysterious crack had appeared in my glass patio table. Paradise had not just been interrupted. It had been violated, boundaries crossed with shocking entitlement. The doorbell rang at precisely 10 o'clock the next morning. I had spent much of the previous evening skimming debris from the pool, wiping down surfaces, and fuming about the audacity of the entire situation. Through my peephole, I could see Karen standing on my porch, holding a small gift bag and wearing an expression that I could only describe as contrition's understudy, not quite hitting the mark of genuine remorse. I opened the door but remained squarely in the doorway, making no move to invite her inside. Karen thrust the gift bag forward immediately. I brought you something, a thank you for yesterday. The salesperson said it is excellent quality. Her voice carried the sing-song quality of rehearsed pleasantness. Inside the bag was a bottle of mid-priced wine, not expensive enough to signal actual apology, but not cheap enough to be obviously insulting. The calculated nature of the gesture only irritated me further. Karen, what happened yesterday was completely unacceptable. You brought 20 strangers into my backyard without permission. People were in my house. Things were damaged. I kept my tone even factual. Karen nodded rapidly, her eyes widening with practiced empathy. I know, things got a bit out of hand. I should have checked with you first. It was just such a perfect day for swimming and everyone was available and it all came together so quickly. She paused, then added, the children had such a wonderful time, though, despite the awkward ending. I maintained eye contact, waiting for an actual apology that never materialized. Instead, Karen quickly pivoted to her real agenda. So listen, I was thinking. To make it up to you properly, I would love to host you for dinner next weekend. And perhaps, if you are feeling generous, we could organize just one more small El Pool gathering, much smaller this time, I promise. Just my immediate family and maybe the Johnsons from across the street. This weekend would be perfect since the weather forecast looks amazing. The audacity was breathtaking. Not even 24 hours after her egregious boundary violation, she was already angling for another pool day. Against my better judgment, exhausted by confrontation and hoping to restore neighborhood peace, I reluctantly agreed to a small, supervised visit with clear limitations. 4 people maximum, Karen, just your immediate family, Saturday from noon to 3, and I will be present the entire time. I stated each condition clearly, leaving no room for misinterpretation. Karen beamed, perfect, the kids will be thrilled, and do not worry about a thing, we will be respectful guests. That Saturday arrived with perfect pool weather, bright sunshine, light breeze, and temperatures in the high 80s. I had just finished setting up a few chairs when Karen's minivan pulled into my driveway. To my immediate dismay, it was followed by 2 additional vehicles. Karen emerged from her van with her husband and 2 children, plus a cooler and several large bags. From the other cars came 3 additional adults and 4 more children I had never seen before. Karen, I called out as they approached the gate. We agreed on 4 people, your family only. Karen laughed lightly as if I had made a charming joke. Oh, this is practically family. This is my sister and her kids, and our dear friends the Millers who are visiting from out of town. I could not possibly leave them out when we had this arranged. They will only stay a short while. Before I could object further, children were already running toward the pool, while adults began unpacking coolers on my patio table. Karen had executed her Beitan switch with practiced precision, knowing it would be more uncomfortable to turn everyone away than to acquiesce. Throughout the afternoon, I maintained a watchful presence, growing increasingly irritated as I observed Karen's behavior. While retrieving pool toys from my storage bin, I overheard her phone conversation on the patio, her voice lowered but still audible. Yes, we are here now, the kids are loving it, she said to whoever was on the other end. No, it is fine, her pool is basically a community resource now, perfect for these hot summer days when the public pool is too crowded. She laughed softly. Next weekend should work too, I will text you the address. I felt my jaw clench with renewed anger. Was she actually planning future invasions without even consulting me? That evening, after everyone had finally left, curiosity drove me to search Karen's name on social media. What I found stunned me even further. There on her Instagram page were dozens of photos taken in my backyard. Another perfect day at our neighborhood pool, read one caption. So blessed to have access to this amazing space whenever we need it, declared another. A video showed her children diving from my board with the text, "Summer membership has its privileges." This was not a misunderstanding. This was not a well-intentioned neighbor overstepping. This was a calculated, ongoing campaign to claim my private property as a community resource with Karen as its self-appointed manager. The pattern of boundary pushing was now undeniable, and with sinking clarity, I realized this situation would only escalate unless I took decisive action. The following weekend arrived with a sense of impending disaster. Despite no invitation being extended, Karen had texted me Thursday evening. Weather looks perfect for Saturday. The group is so excited for another pool day. We will bring snacks to share this time. I had immediately replied that I had not agreed to any gathering, but Karen simply responded with a thumbs-up emoji and "see you around noon." Saturday morning, I watched with growing dread as vehicles began parking along my street shortly before midday. Karen arrived first, her minivan packed with pool noodles, coolers, and twice as many guests as last time. She waved cheerfully as though we had an established arrangement. Behind her came 3 more cars, then another, then 2 more. I counted at least 15 people approaching my gate before I stepped outside to intercept them. Karen, we did not agree to this, I stated firmly as she unloaded bags onto my driveway. She barely looked up. Oh, do not worry so much. Everyone knows the rules now. No running, no glass near the pool. It will be fine. She handed a heavy cooler to her husband who was already heading through my gate as if he owned the place. That is not the point. This is my private property. I did not invite all these people. I gestured to the growing crowd of strangers assembling on my lawn. Karen glanced around with a dismissive wave. Just friends and family. Everyone has been looking forward to this all week. The children will be heartbroken if we cancel now. Without waiting for my response, she continued unloading her van, effectively ignoring my objection. The sheer boldness of her assumption rendered me momentarily speechless. By the time I gathered my thoughts to insist they leave, half the group was already settled around my pool, children splashing in the water while adults arranged food on my patio tables. Fighting down rising panic, I decided to document everything. This could not continue. For the next 2 hours, I watched with growing horror as my property was treated like a public recreation center. A teenage boy I had never seen before helped himself to my pool equipment shed, removing floats and pool toys without asking. 2 women I did not know entered my house through the back door, returning with ice from my freezer. When I confronted them, they seemed genuinely surprised by my objection. But Karen said it was fine, one woman explained with confusion. She said you share everything with the neighborhood. Near the deep end of the pool, a teenage boy was performing increasingly dangerous stunts, jumping and flipping dangerously close to younger swimmers. "Hey," I called out, "please stop that, it is not safe." The boy ignored me completely, climbing back onto the diving board for another flip. On his next jump, his foot caught the edge of my pool light housing, cracking the waterproof casing with an audible snap. Underwater lights were not cheap. That single broken fixture would cost hundreds to replace. I marched over to Karen, who was lounging under my patio umbrella scrolling through her phone. "That boy just broke my pool light. This has to stop." Karen barely glanced up. "Boys will be boys. That is what homeowners insurance is for, right?" She chuckled as though we were sharing an inside joke. "My insurance does not cover damage caused by unauthorized guests that you invited without my permission," I replied, struggling to maintain composure. Karen's smile tightened just slightly. "Look, accidents happen, no need to make a big deal about it." As we were speaking, I noticed a car pull up and 3 more adults approach my gate. A woman I had never seen before waved at Karen. "Is this the neighborhood pool you mentioned? We brought our own towels," she called out cheerfully. "Absolutely, come on in," Karen responded before I could say anything. "Neighborhood pool," I turned to Karen, incredulous. "You are telling people I run a neighborhood pool." Karen shrugged, unconcerned. "Everyone knows it is your pool technically. I just meant it is a pool in the neighborhood that generous neighbors can use." Her emphasis on generous carried an unmistakable guilt trip. The final straw came late in the afternoon. I had retreated to my kitchen, watching through the window as strangers continued to enjoy my property without permission. Karen gathered several adults around her lounger, speaking animatedly. Though I could not hear her words, the gestures toward my pool and the nodding heads told me everything I needed to know. As the group began packing up their belongings, Karen approached me with what I now recognized as her planning face, head slightly tilted, eyes calculating despite the friendly smile. "Everyone had such a wonderful time today," she announced. "We were thinking of coming back tomorrow while you are at work. That way you can have your Sunday to yourself and we can still enjoy the pool. The Hendersons are bringing their new grill since yours is a bit small for the group." Something inside me snapped. The casual assumption that her friends could use my property while I was not even home. The audacity of criticizing my grill's size while planning an invasion. The complete disregard for my ownership, privacy, and boundaries. "Perfect," I heard myself saying, my voice unnaturally calm. "What time should I expect everyone?" Karen beamed triumphantly. "Around 11 would be ideal. We will probably stay until dinner time if that works for you." "Of course," I nodded pleasantly. "I have to leave for work by 9, so the place will be all yours." As Karen walked away, already texting furiously to coordinate tomorrow's unauthorized pool party, I knew exactly what I needed to do. Enough was enough. The moment the last car pulled away from my driveway, my false accommodation transformed into purposeful action. I had given Karen exactly what she wanted, the impression of total surrender. Now I would give her exactly what she deserved, consequences. I took my phone and began systematically photographing every bit of damage left behind. The cracked pool light housing underwater, the broken electrical outlet cover, stains on my cushions, scratches on my wooden table. I recorded video of the garbage left behind, empty sunscreen bottles, food wrappers, and abandoned wet towels. Evidence was the foundation of what would come next. "Thank you so much for tomorrow," I texted Karen, just to confirm. "You will be here around 11 a.m. I leave for work at 9, but we'll make sure everything is ready." I included a smiley face emoji for good measure. Her reply came instantly. "Yes, so excited. The group chat is buzzing about pool day round 2. Perfect. Every message was another piece of evidence showing her intent to use my property without permission. I continued with strategic information. "My shift ends at 6 p.m., but I might grab dinner with coworkers after, so no rush to leave early on my account." The next call I made was to Secure Home Locksmith, a 24-hour emergency service I found with excellent reviews. The situation qualified as an emergency in my mind. The locksmith, a burly man named Frank, arrived within the hour. I explained that I needed a specialized lock for my pool gate, something secure that could not be easily bypassed. "I need something with a key entry from both sides," I explained, "not just a latch that can be reached over the fence." Frank nodded without judgment. "Had neighbor problems before. A double-cylinder deadbolt should do the trick. No one gets in or out without the key." While Frank worked on the gate, I made my next call to a security company. By nightfall, I had 3 high-definition cameras installed, one overlooking the pool area, one focused on the gate entrance, and one covering the pathway from the street. Each camera connected directly to my smartphone, allowing real-time monitoring and recording from anywhere. My next step required professional advice. I called my cousin Thomas, an attorney specializing in property law. Though it was evening, he took my call and listened patiently to my situation. "What you are describing is clear trespassing," Thomas confirmed. "Even if previously you gave permission for pool use, you have every right to revoke that permission at any time. It is your property." "What about liability?" I asked. "If someone gets hurt while trespassing?" "Post clear signage immediately," Thomas advised. "No trespassing signs at all entry points. Also specific warning about pool dangers. That helps establish that any entry is against your explicit instructions." By midnight, my transformation from pushover to prepared property owner was complete. The new lock gleamed on my gate. Security cameras monitored every approach. Fresh, no trespassing, and private property signs were posted visibly on the fence and gate. As a final touch, I installed a sign specifically stating, "Swimming pool closed to public, violators will be prosecuted." I tested my phone app, confirming I could see clear video from all 3 cameras. I could even speak through the camera system if needed, thanks to the two-way audio feature. Everything was in place. The final element of my plan required a subtle deception. I texted Karen one last time before bed, just a reminder about tomorrow. "Gate might stick a little, but just push hard. Pool chemicals fresh this morning. Have fun." I even added details about where extra towels could be found, a fabrication to reinforce the illusion that I was fully cooperating. As I tested the new deadbolt lock, the solid click it made was perhaps the most satisfying sound I had heard in weeks. I smiled for the first time since this ordeal began. Karen had mistaken my kindness for weakness, my flexibility for unlimited permission. Tomorrow would bring clarity about whose property this actually was. I slept soundly that night, phone on my nightstand, security app ready to alert me to any motion near my pool. Tomorrow would not go as Karen planned, not at all. Morning arrived with perfect pool weather, bright sunshine, clear skies, and temperatures forecast to reach the low 90s by afternoon. Ideal conditions for Karen's planned invasion of my property. I dressed in my work clothes, left through my front door at precisely 8:45 a.m. and drove away just as I had promised. But instead of heading to work, I parked at the coffee shop 3 blocks from my house, ordered a large coffee, and opened my security app. By 10:30 a.m., my phone pinged with its first motion alert. On my screen, I watched as Karen's minivan pulled into my driveway, followed immediately by two SUVs, right on schedule. I sipped my coffee as I observed Karen emerge from her vehicle, designer sunglasses perched on her head, carrying a large cooler. Behind her came her husband, children, and at least four other adults I recognized from previous unauthorized gatherings. Karen led the procession confidently toward my gate, chatting animatedly with the group. When she reached the entrance, she grasped the handle and pushed. Nothing happened. She pushed again, harder this time, her brow furrowing in confusion. I zoomed in on the camera view, watching as she finally noticed the new lock securing the gate. "It is locked," I heard her say through the microphone. "He must have forgotten to unlock it before leaving." She reached for her phone, presumably to text me. I had sipated this and had already silenced notifications from her number. On my screen, I watched as she typed, waited, then frowned at her device. "No response," she told the gathering crowd. "He must be at work already." A woman in a wide-brimmed hat suggested, "Maybe there is a key hidden somewhere, under a rock or a plant pot." The group spread out, searching my front yard for a key that did not exist. Karen's frustration grew visibly as each potential hiding spot yielded nothing. Finally, her husband examined the lock more closely. "This looks brand new," he observed. "I do not think we are getting through this without the key." More vehicles arrived, adding to the collection of disappointed would-be pool users gathering on my driveway. I counted at least 25 people now, many more than had attended the previous day. Karen's social media promotion had clearly been effective. "Just call him at work," someone suggested. "I tried," Karen responded, irritation evident in her voice. It went straight to voicemail. The crowd grew restless in the increasing heat. Children whined about promises of swimming. Adults checked their phones and exchanged confused glances. Karen's composure began to crack as her perfectly planned pool day disintegrated. Then the phone calls began. My security app alerted me to each incoming call from Karen's number, 6 in total, over 20 minutes. I watched her expression grow increasingly angry with each unanswered call. After the sixth attempt, she left a voicemail that I could listen to through my phone. "This is not funny," her voice hissed through my speaker. "We have 20 people standing in your driveway in 90-degree heat. The children are disappointed. You promised we could use the pool today. Call me back immediately." The situation escalated when Karen noticed my new security cameras and warning signs. Her face contorted with indignation as she read the no trespassing notice aloud to the group. Several adults began gathering their belongings, clearly uncomfortable with the situation. "He cannot do this," Karen declared loudly enough for the camera microphone to pick up clearly. "We had an agreement. He is just being petty." What happened next shocked me even through the small screen of my phone. Karen, apparently determined not to admit defeat, assessed the height of my fence. After a brief discussion with her husband, they positioned themselves on either side of the gate. To my disbelief, Karen began helping smaller children climb over my fence, her husband receiving them on the other side. "Karen," I spoke through the camera speaker, my voice booming into my backyard. "You are trespassing on private property. Please leave immediately." The sound of my voice through the outdoor speaker froze everyone in place. Karen recovered quickly, scanning for the source of my voice. "Where are you? You said we could use the pool today," she shouted at the camera. "I never gave permission for anyone to climb my fence," I replied calmly. "You are trespassing, which is illegal. Please leave the property now." Karen's face flushed red with anger. "You cannot do this. The children are already hot and dressed for swimming, you promised." "I am calling the police to report trespassing if you do not leave immediately," I stated firmly. For a tense moment, Karen seemed to consider defying me further. Then I activated my final defensive measure, the remote-controlled sprinkler system I had programmed through my smart home app. Instantly, sprinklers throughout my yard sprang to life, spraying in all directions. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Children squealed, adults shouted in surprise, and Karen, positioned perfectly in range of my strongest sprinkler, received the full force of the water directly. Her designer outfit soaked through instantly. Her carefully styled hair collapsed under the deluge. Her makeup began to run in dark streams down her face. The carefully cultivated image of neighborhood queen bee dissolved quite literally before my eyes. The exodus was swift and chaotic. Parents grabbed children, belongings were hastily collected, and vehicles departed my driveway in rapid succession. Only Karen remained, dripping and furious, staring directly into my security camera with undisguised rage. "This is not over," she declared before stomping to her minivan. I finished my coffee, paid my bill, and drove home, prepared for the confrontation I knew awaited me. As expected, Karen's minivan was parked across my driveway when I arrived. She sat on my front steps, still damp, arms crossed tightly over her chest. Her expression when I approached contained no trace of the friendly neighbor facade, only raw, entitled anger. The reckoning had arrived. Karen shot to her feet the moment I stepped from my car. Her hair hung in wet strands around her face, mascara smudged beneath her eyes, the picture of thwarted entitlement. "How dare you," she hissed. As I approached my front door. "You humiliated me in front of everyone. You ruined a perfectly good pool day that you had already approved. I had guests from out of town." I unlocked my front door calmly. "Would you like to come inside to discuss this, or would you prefer to continue shouting on my front lawn where the entire neighborhood can hear you?" Fuming, Karen followed me inside. The moment my door closed, she launched into a tirade. "This is completely unacceptable behavior," she declared, pacing my living room. "I could sue you for emotional distress. My children were traumatized. Do you know how many people took time off work for this pool day? How many children are now disappointed? And you had the audacity to spray us with water. My outfit is ruined." I set my keys down and faced her directly. "Karen, let me be absolutely clear. You never had permission to use my pool today. You never had permission to bring 20 people to my property. You certainly never had permission to climb my fence, which constitutes criminal trespassing." Karen scoffed dramatically. "We had an agreement, you texted me about it." "I have something to show you," I replied, retrieving my laptop from the counter. "Please have a seat." Reluctantly, Karen perched on the edge of my sofa. I opened my computer and queued up the security footage from earlier that day. "This is you helping children climb over my fence despite clearly posted no trespassing signs," I explained, playing the damning video. Karen's expression shifted slightly as she watched herself in the unmistakable act of trespassing. "You changed the rules without telling anyone," she countered weakly. "And this," I continued, switching to footage from the previous weekend, "is your teenage friend breaking my pool light. And here," I advanced the footage, "is you telling me that is what homeowners insurance is for." Karen shifted uncomfortably. "Those cameras are an invasion of privacy." "They are on my property, recording illegal entry to my property," I corrected. "Now let me show you something else." I pulled up the extensive photo documentation of damages from previous pool invasions. The broken electrical outlet, the stained cushions, the cracked table, each image undermined Karen's position further. "And finally," I said, opening my social media app, "here are your public posts advertising my private backyard as, and I quote, our neighborhood pool with summer membership privileges. This is my private residence, Karen, not a public facility." The color drained from Karen's face as the evidence mounted. Her righteous indignation deflated visibly. "What exactly do you want?" she asked finally, her voice considerably less confident. Before I could answer, a knock at my door interrupted us. Through the window, I recognized Robert Chambers, the HOA president. Perfect timing. "I called Robert this morning," I explained to Karen as I moved to answer the door. "I thought having an official HOA representative present would be helpful for this conversation." Karen's eyes widened with alarm. Her standing in the community was clearly important to her, and having the HOA president witness her humiliation was not part of her plan. Robert entered, greeting me with a handshake. "I came as soon as I could. You mentioned a serious property violation." Yes, thank you for coming, I replied, gesturing toward my laptop. I was just showing Karen the evidence of repeated trespassing and property damage. For the next 20 minutes, Robert reviewed the footage and photos with growing concern. Karen attempted several times to minimize her actions, claiming misunderstandings and exaggerations. Each excuse fell flat against the clear video evidence. This is clearly unacceptable behavior, Robert finally stated, addressing Karen directly. Our HOA bylaws specifically prohibit unauthorized use of private property. Section 8.3 also covers defamation and misrepresentation of community resources. Karen's shoulders slumped. It was just supposed to be harmless fun. The children love swimming. The community pool exists for public swimming, Robert reminded her. Private homes are not community resources unless explicitly designated as such by owners. The HOA president turned to me. What resolution would you find acceptable? 3 things, I stated clearly. First, written acknowledgement that my pool is private property with access by invitation only. Second, reimbursement for damages to my property. And third, removal of all social media posts.